morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our new webinar, Delivery Changes in the New Year. I'm Jill, and I'm the Training and Education Manager here at Vertical Response. And the presentation today is going to be by Kirsty Esparza, our Director of Email Delivery. A couple things before we jump into our very interesting webinar today. This webinar is going to be about 30 minutes long, and then we will have time for Q&A at the end. So if you do think of questions along the way, please feel free to put those in the box that you see in the GoToWebinar window, and we'll be happy to answer as many of those as we can at the end. One of the questions we get at every single webinar, even when I make this announcement, is this being recorded? And the answer is yes, I am recording it. I will put it up on our help site next week, the recorded version, along with the slides if you just want to take a look at the slides and not listen to our lovely Kirsty. But I would recommend just listening to her again. So with that, I am going to hand this over to Kirsty, and we're going to get into delivery changes in the new year.
All right, thank you, Jill. For this presentation, I definitely want to cover some ISP updates or what have the Hotmails and the Yahoos been working on and changing over the past year. Then how do you, as a VR user and email marketer, manage this change? And then we also have a few new tools in our arsenal that we can offer you to help manage this change as well. I'm going to focus today on the changes seen with Gmail and Hotmail over the past year. Gmail released their priority inbox actually last January, but Gmail likes to introduce new product updates like this slowly, and they roll it out to their audience over time. So they finally rolled out the priority inbox to all users, and we've had a chance to experience it in the wild. Watch the filters respond to user activity, kind of get a real feel for how it works and how you interact with the priority inbox. The filtering changes at Hotmail have been announced more recently in October, and there's been a lot of buzz, a lot of blog posts in the email industry about these particular changes. But we'll start with Gmail first. So what is priority inbox? Google's definition of spam is really anything unwanted by the user. Unfortunately, this has no relation to the legal definition of spam, and it can dramatically vary from user to user. Even the same email sent from the same sender can be perceived very differently. Jill may receive an email the same day I do from the same sender, but she may be opposed to the content and label it spam, whereas I'm fully engaged and read it 3 times. Google takes this complexity of user behavior into account, and they filter on a number of different factors, all based on the user behavior. The first one they look at are social features, and this is what I would call standard engagement. This is based on the interaction between the sender and the recipient. For example, the percentage of a sender's mail that is read by the recipient. Content features are next, and they attempt to identify key content indicators that are correlated with the recipient acting or not acting on the mail. For example, if you constantly geek out about recording music, so that anything with audio or recording, etc., you're consuming and reading those emails, that content is then much more likely to receive an open if it's delivered to you. So that would be taken into consideration when a new sender is attempting to send you mail containing those keywords. The next feature they filter on are called thread features. And this is the user's interaction with the thread or sender historically. So has the Gmail user ever replied to the sender? And this is sort of where we had our eureka moment, bingo. This is where we found an interesting feature. After 3 replies from a Gmail user, you're automatically added to their safe sender list, meaning images render by default, you have guaranteed inbox placement for that user, so inherently better engagement. Label features are the 4th tier of their filtering suite within the priority inbox. So they examine the labels that users apply to mail. Gmail users can attach labels to filter their own email in their own inbox, and so as labels are proactively applied to mail coming in, they're a strong indicator that you actually want to receive the message that you've replied the label to. So Gmail's taking that into account. Gmail also, they provide a public PDF file if you want to get a little bit more information on these 4 tiers of filtering, and it goes into some serious detail about the algorithms they use to figure out this filtering. I'm not a mathematician. It was interesting reading, but, you know, a little bit over my head somewhat. But most of the people in the email industry generally agree that Gmail's rewarding senders that have active subscribers with inbox placement, and then they're attempting to place everything else outside of the inbox unless otherwise taught by user preference filtering not to. So encouraging replies seems to be an increasing trend and maybe a surefire road to inbox placement. We've been hearing from a few more users lately, specifically asking about how to troubleshoot delivery issues. So I wanted to offer this reply suggestion, as well as offer some specific remediation processes if you are seeing higher levels of bulking at Gmail. So Gmail provides a bulk sender contact form where you can fill out and escalate your concern. Now, don't let the name fool you. Filling out this form does not mean that Gmail will respond to you. This is for you as the sender to contact them and alert them to the false positive spam filtering of your content. You will not get a response after filling out this form. I think over the 10 years that I've worked in email delivery, I've received one response from an escalation through this form, and it was because Gmail, something was broken on their side. Now using this form over that 10 years, I have seen changes to inbox delivery based on submissions to this form. It's not the golden ticket. It won't help every single time, but I have seen filtering change as a result of submission. So the other action would be use our list segmentation tool in your VR account to segment your most engaged recipients from the rest of your subscribers. And when I'm talking about engagement, I'm talking about recipients who have opened and clicked an email. Maybe if you're tracking ROI, have they purchased something from you in the past 6 months? Those are really your key contacts, the primary ones you want to focus your targeting on, because when you target your most engaged recipients, they're going to be opening and clicking your email. They will be training the Gmail filters that your content is wanted and engaged with. So segment out your most engaged recipients. Message them differently. Message your engaged recipients more frequently. Try to re-engage your unengaged recipients with different messaging. And then if you are really targeting and troubleshooting a bulking issue, segment your engaged recipients and email that content first to your most engaged recipients. So that way the Gmail filters are recognizing that content, again, as wanted and engaged. And then when that second wave of the campaign comes to maybe your less engaged audience, it's more likely to be better perceived by the filters because it has already been delivered to your engaged audience.
And in addition to people who are maybe making a purchase, it would be really whatever you're trying to get accomplished with your email. So if you're a nonprofit, if somebody's making a donation or they're downloading a white paper or signing up for an event, it doesn't necessarily mean somebody making a purchase, but it's people who are interested in your email and who are doing things with it. They're doing what you're asking. Clicking links, making purchases, donations, downloading, whatever you're trying to get them to do, they're doing it. Those are your engaged people.
That's a good distinction. And while unfortunately there's no silver bullet or real shortcut to improving delivery at Gmail, adhering to these practices of escalating the content as needed and segmenting out and targeting your most engaged, these practices should improve the likelihood of inbox placement for all your recipients.
Yeah, I use Gmail for my own personal email program, and I do find that anything that I have a tendency to filter or whatever goes straight to where I want it to. It doesn't go to the spam folder. There's one email I get that goes, I click on links, I read it every time, and it goes straight to the spam folder. I don't know what it is. But otherwise, besides that one email, I do notice a difference with how the delivery works in Gmail. And for me, anyway, with the way I'm engaged with my emails, it works really well for me. So hopefully everyone else finds that Gmail is working well for them as well.
My delivery brain is swirling. It's got to be a content or a link issue.
Oh, it is. It's one of those celebrity gossip type of things. And I get
Yes.
2 of them. One always goes to the inbox and one always goes to the spam folder. So clearly they're linking to something terrible, or they have a bad ad in their email or
Right.
something like that. I don't think it really has to do with my engagement. It has to do with some of the content.
I agree. I agree. So I didn't want to toss a recommendation at you to fill out a form without explaining where to get the form or how to fill it out. What I suggest is Googling bulk sender contact form Gmail, and this will come up. That is the form that you'll need. It was easier to suggest Googling that than trying to give you a link. So when you click on that, you'll come to this form. It's really simple to fill out if you have the right information. Gmail tells you how to extract the content for the example message that they're asking for. But what you'll need to grab that content per their instructions. You'll need your email address. You'll need to know the affected domain, which is vresp.com. That's the from domain in mail sent from Vertical Response. And then you'll also want to add the comment that the message was incorrectly routed to the bulk folder. And then this will bubble up to their team, and they'll review it and see if it's being filtered correctly or not. And then you can go ahead and skip this slide. I already covered this on the last. All right. So as ISPs are growing more sophisticated and confident with fighting real spam, they're beginning to start addressing the issues of helping their users manage their email experience with other mail, with marketing, email, transactional mail, social media updates, etc. We've seen this drive to help users manage their inbox with an increase in inbox management tools over the past year. And most dramatically, Hotmail has launched the most public changes and basically has issued a declaration of war.
See if this works.
There was some sound in there, but that's kind of new for us, so forgive the giggles. You didn't hear the explosion as we declared war. So basically, what has brought forth this posturing from Hotmail? Why the war? What does Hotmail mean? Hotmail explains that the content of a typical email inbox has really changed over the past few years, and they found in recent studies that 50% of mail in people's mailboxes are newsletters, and now only about 14% is the true person-to-person email that users interact with and look for on a daily basis. And Hotmail's users were simply overwhelmed with their own inboxes. So Hotmail has started to define gray mail as newsletters you sign up for and forget about but keep getting. Or it could be newsletters you get when you join a new service and forget to uncheck the email subscription checkbox. Or it could be updates you get from social networks or websites. What really characterizes gray mail for them is that the same message that one person thinks is spam really could be important to another. Just the example I presented with Gmail earlier. Thus it's not black and white. Thus the gray name. So Hotmail has responded to this with a few new features to help users manage their inbox. They already had categories to help their users manage social updates, messages that contain Office documents, messages with photos, and even shipping notifications. You can have default folders in your mail client to filter for this. So in response to their discovery of half of a typical user's mailbox is newsletters, they've recently added a new special category for newsletters. They use the same smart screen filtering technology that they developed to fight spam, which is a machine learning engine that they have proven gets better over time. And right out of the gate, Hotmail was bragging that they were 95% accurate with the mail that they were categorizing as newsletters. The other feature that they offer is actually something I like quite a bit. It's their one-click unsubscribe feature. And this is Hotmail's attempt to really get users to stop complaining or labeling as junk this type of gray mail. Gray mail is typically sent by reputable senders who honor unsubscribe links. So when a user is unsubscribing using Hotmail's feature, as opposed to labeling the mail as junk, this does not go into harming the sender's reputation within the Hotmail filtering system, so will be less likely to be blocked or placed into the junk folder. In fact, by removing these unengaged users through their unsubscribe feature, you should end up in the end with a more engaged audience and a better sending reputation because people aren't complaining as a way to be removed from the mailing, but are unsubscribing. and then leaving those active and engaged people on your contact list. This also addresses some of the fear that email users have in clicking links in emails from senders they don't recognize, and this behavior has really been trained by the ISPs. If you don't know the sender, don't touch the email. So if your email frequency is too infrequent, if you've waited too long to send out your welcome letter, your subscriber may have forgotten they've subscribed. I know this happens with me, short-term memory. Your send could be perceived as a non-permission send that they didn't opt into, and so then they may be hesitant to scroll down and unsubscribe with the embedded link via our inserts. And so what Hotmail's doing is they're attempting to build trust back into the unsubscribe process for their users by taking the mechanism that we already insert in the email to enable a recipient to unsubscribe, and then they represent it in a safe and trusted format, enabling recipients to unsubscribe quickly and cleanly. So this, in the end, really should avoid what I used to call the lazy complaint, or the lazy unsubscribe, which was a Hotmail user, or any ISP user really, clicking the junk mail simply because they no longer want to receive a newsletter they subscribe to. This behavior is recognized, the ISPs know this happens, and Hotmail's really been on the forefront of trying to address it in the user interface, so that way the recipient really can trust the newsletters unsubscribe. And then schedule cleanup enables the users to delete messages or move them to certain folders as they age. So one thing, as I was reviewing this new feature, was you may want to be sure you're archiving your email content and distributing it through your social channels, or cataloging the email content on your Facebook page, for example. And this could be a way to ensure that your users have as many avenues to access older content, just in case they get a little over-aggressive and start cleaning out their folders before they've really consumed your message.
That's a good tip, and we have some things built into our system that will allow you to do that. When you go to launch your email, you actually have the option of posting it on Facebook or Twitter. Facebook being a better place probably for archiving your newsletter than Twitter. It's a little harder to find things on Twitter after a little while. But that is also a great way to make it available for your recipients. You can also archive your emails on your website if you want to do that, but you can also, like Kirsty said, easily just post it to Facebook and people can access it if they have actually have been over-aggressive in cleaning up their inbox. That's a great tip.
So we've really jumped in and focused on Hotmail and Gmail, and specifically looking at their big user-facing changes over the past year. But I wanted to back up a little bit and review at a high level the filtering in place at the big four ISPs and kind of do a side-by-side comparison. These four ISPs, which are called the big four, make up the vast majority of any average B2C, business-to-consumer senders contact list. So all the big four do employ filtering technology that they themselves have developed based on their own unique user bases, as well as incorporating other third-party filtering partners to ensure that they're managing and providing the best user experience for their users. All are incorporating more and more engagement metrics into their filtering. Are users interacting with the email by opening and clicking it, moving it to a special folder? Did they delete it right away after receiving it, or did they spend some time with the content? Rereading it more than once? Do they forward it to their friends? Do they reply to the email sender? There it comes back again. I actually am beginning to encourage users to ask for replies, maybe, reply to enroll in a sweepstakes, or, some sort of engagement with your business. Help us come up with a new tagline. Reply with your favorite whatever. What's your favorite sweater color? Where you want to, things like that. And again, it's that engagement in the replies that can really help make sure that your content's going to the inbox. All are monitoring complaint metrics very carefully. This has not changed. Some are able to narrow the cause of complaints down to a repeated string of text in an email, so that if the same content is sent from many different sources, that content will be recognized as problematic as opposed to the source of the mailing. Sometimes a single link or domain in the email will trigger filtering because that content element has too often been associated with emails complained about in the past.
Like my example.
And this was the slide that came to mind when you brought up your example. Exactly. I bet There's some piece of content or link or something in that that's causing
Yeah.
that. So Yahoo incorporates content and URL filtering, and URLs are links. Those are the link filtering. And they're also one of the few ISPs that filters by domain versus IP address. So they're not just filtering based on the sending infrastructure, which would be the IP address, but on the from domain that the user sees. Hotmail utilizes the homegrown smart screen technology I referred to earlier. This is their machine learning. They consider volume, spam complaints, and spam traps into filtering. Hotmail is very transparent about their use of old email addresses that they turn into spam traps. So they've explained that they'll repurpose abandoned email addresses and turn those into spam traps to monitor a marketer's database or contact management. So if you're continuing to send to older accounts that are no longer engaged, that can be problematic at Hotmail. Dramatic changes in volume can trigger to Hotmail that there's a problem, and so large increases or even large drops in volume can cause Hotmail to block or filter mail outright. They also use, Hotmail's really interesting, they have a lot of different things. They use a sender reputation data network, which is a panel of live active Hotmail users who agree to receive additional email that they then rate on their perception of whether the mail is spam or not. And so this program, this SRD program, helps to train and improve the way the smart screen technology classifies messages based on content and sender reputation. Participants in this program, in case you're looking to volunteer, are selected from active Hotmail users at random from over 200 companies. So it really is an international effort. And no one is allowed to volunteer. Their votes on whether they think your email looks spammy or not holds a lot of weight in filtering. And I've actually, a couple of years ago, was part of that. It was kind of fun.
I imagine that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, they roll you in and off and on the program.
Mm.
VR is also enrolled in Hotmail's junk email reporting program, which is their feedback loop. And it's a program where they inform us of who complained and what they complained about. And that enables us to remove the complainer from your contact list as an unsubscribe. And then it enables us to monitor accounts that are generating too many complaints. Most of the big four here, Gmail's the lone one. Most of the ISPs, the big ISPs out there, offer this sort of feedback loop style program. Gmail primarily uses its own community of users to determine whether the email is spam or not. They use a reputation based on a sliding scale of 0 to 100, with 100 being the best. So the reputation score at Gmail indicates the probability that a given sender's mail is not spam. So the higher the reputation, the more confident Gmail is to deliver to the inbox. Like most reputation systems, the foundation is on user reports of spam and not spam. Gmail really takes into account the not spam reports as well. So it's not just people complaining, but people going in and plucking your email out of the junk mail folder. So as email arrives, Gmail's measuring how many times the mail's automatically delivered to the inbox or spam folder, and then how many times the user manually reports spam or not spam. So a formula taking into account these four actions is then used to calculate the sender's reputation that will determine future deliveries. Yada, yada, yada. But inbox delivery at Gmail is also impacted heavily by content filtering. They have a very sophisticated content filtering algorithm that scours the content, both the email headers that are unseen by the recipient, as well as the body with the content, attachments. They look for keywords, images, problematic HTML, malware, any other problems. Gmail's really digging in. And then AOL's reputation system is also homegrown with third-party filters. As a general observation, if you're a responsible sender, you're not going to see a lot of bulking at AOL. They also do block quite a bit on link filtering, URL filtering. So we'll see content blocked from time to time just for one particular sender on our network with content issues. So if there's anything that will remain constant over the next few years with these ISPs and their filtering, is that it will not remain constant. These ISPs are engaged with keeping spam out of their users' inbox and making their user experience as sticky and positive as possible. And because the spammers are constantly, daily, changing their techniques and looking for ways to mimic the good senders to gain that coveted inbox placement. The ISPs are constantly on the defensive, changing and adjusting and honing and monitoring their own filtering. But these recommendations for managing this change do apply across all ISPs, and these recommendations generally remain consistent. These are best practices that keep you as a good sender. You keep your bounces and complaint rates low. So to keep complaints low, one of my biggest recommendations is to brand your emails consistently. Think about how you're marketing yourself via other channels, print, web, social networks, your brick and mortar identity. Keep your branding as consistent with your other marketing efforts as possible to be sure you're recognized and welcomed every time. Set expectations and then meet them. Send a welcome letter to your new subscribers, previewing content that they should expect and the frequency you will be sending that content, and then stick to this contract with your subscriber. In a meeting with Comcast, they once explained that the #1 trigger for complaints in their network were changes in email frequency. This was generally due to an unexpected increase, but they said also due to a sudden decrease as well. Be relevant. Don't send the same content over and over again, or your engagement will surely drop off. So keep your subscribers engaged and looking and wanting your email. Review reporting spikes or changes in the unsubscribe activity. Vertical Response tracks all complaints that come in through various sources. We unsubscribe those complaints in your contact list. So if you see a spike in this unsubscribe activity in your reporting, it can indicate there may be a problem within your mail program. Maybe a new sign-up source that's not proving as efficient as it should be. So also keep your bounce rates low. If you're a regular mailer and regularly reaching out to your contacts, you shouldn't see the bounce rate for your campaigns creep above 5%. If the bounce rates are higher, it's a signal to the filters that your contact list may be older, and thus your contact's not as engaged with your email. So email contacts right away, maintain that steady frequency, and then as you do implement new sign-up sources, which we recommend, try to get subscribers and engaged recipients from every avenue you can, be it in your store, through your social networks, however, your website, but review those sources regularly, because as you incorporate new sources, the engagement and the expectations from those different sources may be different, and so you might need to hone your program or the sign-up expectations with the different sources. Excuse me. So there are a lot of the same recommendations made to improve delivery to Gmail I'm making here. Target your most engaged recipients, your most engaged contacts more frequently. Reward them for their engagement with special offers or special content. If they know that the more engaged and the more active they are with your content, the better the offers will be, or the more engaged you will be with them as a customer, that's attractive. People want to be wanted. Re-engage your non-responders. Segment them out and really try to bring them back into the fold. Recently, with the holiday mailings, there were a lot of resubscribing, reactivating campaigns that I saw come through, and I was targeted and was successfully re-engaged with a few. I will admit. One that comes to mind and that I really liked was from Etsy. And their subject line was so simple. It was, "Come back, we miss you." And because that was partnered with a from address I recognized, because it was consistent with their previous mailings, I knew who it was. I knew that I wanted to be engaged. I probably just had been too busy to regularly check my email. So I opened their email. I came back into the fold. It worked. I went to their website. I checked stuff out. So, these efforts can be rewarded. Keep your list sources separate in your database. I know at VR you can upload everything into your main database and keep it all in one, but I really recommend creating different lists for your different contact sources. So if it's a sign up within your store, that's its own list. If it's through your opt-in site on your website, that's its own list. If it's driven through your social media networks, and that way, if there are problems, if there are problems, complaint issues, or whatever, with a particular source, it will be easier to identify and resolve. And goodness gracious, if your account's escalated to my team, the delivery and compliance team, for abuse or complaint or some other issue, what we try to do first is really look down into, is there a problem with the data? Is there a problem with a part of the data that we can segment out? In the end, we're trying to preserve your account and your database. And so we don't want to ask you to remove any data unnecessarily. So if we're really able to pinpoint the problem that brought your account to the team, then we can help you solve the problem and bring your account back into good standing. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, watch for that increase in unsubscribes, because this ties into the recommendations above. So VR does have a few new tools. I'm not going to get too salesy, but this is exciting, because in the end, email really is a retention tool. This is the delivery person talking. So you want to drive those engaged with your businesses through other channels to sign up for your email marketing so that you can engage and maintain and retain that customer. So push your email content out to your social network channels. Drive them to subscribe to your email, to your value add content. Use Roost. VR recently purchased a new company called Roost. And with that Roost, you can keep your friends and your fans and your followers up to date across social networks. Basically, what I think is kind of cool about Roost is you can go, it's one point where you can, it's one tool that you can use to update your Twitter, your Facebook, everything all in one place. So if you're really
your LinkedIn.
And your LinkedIn. So if you are really looking to push out your archived, email content to your social networks, it's just a great partnership.
It's also great because you can just log in there, schedule posts that you want to go to whichever social platform you want them to post to. So Facebook, Twitter, you can schedule them a month in advance, but you can also go in Roost and respond to any replies to your post. So if somebody makes a comment on your Facebook post, you can still go into Roost and respond to them. You don't have to log into Facebook separately. So it's an easy way to manage your social media that you're using for marketing as well as your email. And social media marketing and email marketing go together very well, as we've mentioned a few times here today, but we've also done entire webinars on that. So this just makes it a little bit easier. Plus, getting people to engage with you on Facebook or through Twitter or LinkedIn can also help them engage in your email. And we've talked about engagement a lot today, and engagement with your email is really important. It's also important through social media. And by having somebody who's very engaged on Facebook, you can also get them to be engaged in your email. You can have different content in both places. I know for me it works really well. There's a couple of companies that I follow on Facebook that do wonderful things on Facebook that keep me interested in what they're doing, and I'm on their email mailing list, and I'm more inclined to open their emails because I already know interesting things that are going on in the company, and maybe I know that they're sending me an email with a special offer or something like that. So keeping people engaged in both places will also help both. So engagement in your email can help them be engaged on social media and vice versa.
And shoot, post to your social media, outlets that you've recently launched a campaign. Hey, subscribers, check your email.
Yeah.
That will not only encourage your subscribers to check their email, but will encourage your other contacts to subscribe to that email. So with the blending of the internet experience, the online experience, people overlap email and social media. It's really turning into just this nebulous experience with you as a business. So you really want to kind of spread your interaction with your users across all the channels that they are on. Again, it all comes down to engagement.
Yep, it's the key word.
Yep. All right.
Well, that was a lot of information. We will start taking some questions